This video is for Module 2 practice test. I'm going to go over each one, and if you have any questions that you can't figure out, please let me know. If you feel like I'm moving too fast, just hit the pause button and catch yourself up, and then turn me back on. I have a lot of videos to make. Alright, so number 1, x plus 3/8 equals 1/8. So you know you're going to solve for x. When we're dealing with fractions, you can do two things. We can get rid of the fractions by multiplying everything by the greatest common factor. But in this case, since our fractions have the same bottoms, we can just go ahead and combine them. So we're on a minus 3/8 from both sides. So remember, that's what you do with an equation. If you're trying to get rid of it, you're going to do the opposite. And then we're left with x on one side and 1/8 take away 3/8 on the other. Once our bottoms are the same, you keep that the same. Then 1 minus 3 is -2, and then that can be reduced down to 1/4. So number 1's answer is -1/4. Alright, number 2. Solve 8x minus 4 equals 2x plus 20. So you have x's on both sides, so you want to get your x's off one side and put on the other. I always, for some reason, always chose my right side. I guess I was just a creature of habit. But if you wanted -8 from both sides, that's fine too. This is 6x, and we take away our 4. This canceled out. We're left with 20. Sorry, I'm trying to work in small spaces. Add 4 to both sides. Divide by 6. So x equals 4. Number 3, just a little bit harder, where our equations are getting a little bit more complex. So you always want to simplify each side first before you start doing like what we did in number 2. So this side I can get rid of the parentheses by distributing 2 times x, 2 times -1. This side we can combine our x's and we can combine our constants. So 3x take away 2x is 1x. 2 plus 6 is 8. And now we can do like we did in number 2. Take away 1x. Go over here. So we have x left on this side minus 2. That's gone, and 8. Add 2 to both sides. And we're left with 10. Number 4. A couple ways you can deal with decimals. If you don't like decimals too much, you can multiply everything by the length of your longest one. So like this is in the hundredths place, so we could multiply everything by 100. Now when you do that, all you're doing is moving your decimal over 2 spots. So we can move the decimal over 2 spots here. That stays the same since it's being multiplied. 2 spots here and 2 spots here. So it was at the end, and then we moved it. If you don't mind decimals because you're using a calculator, your end result still should be the same. You're just going to be dealing with decimals. Distribute. Move it over here. Going to subtract 3. Let's go ahead and subtract 33x first. So we have 30 minus 33, which is -3, plus 3,000, and left with 21,000 on that side. Now if you had -3,000 from both sides first, wouldn't have been wrong. I just like I said, I'm a creature of habit. I like to do my x's before I do my constants. And then divide both by -3. All right, number 5. So we have a division problem, a 3 down at the bottom. So if we times both things by 3, or we can even do -3 to cancel out the negative, then that will cancel out that, and left with this. If you don't divide by a -3 and you just divide by 3, then don't forget that this will still be a negative because you didn't get rid of it. So then divide both by 2, and x equals 15. Number 6, the perimeter of a room is 32 feet. If the length is 4 feet more than its width, find the width of the rectangle. So don't forget the perimeter formula. That's the first thing you'll need to know. And then we want to define our variables. So you're always going to make everything in terms of x. And we only want one variable in our equation, so that's why everything has to be related to x. Read your question. What they say last is always what your x is going to be. So if they had said if the width is 4 feet more than its length, then your length would be your x. What they did the puzzle to is the length. So it's some unknown width that we don't know, but we do know that the length is 4 more than whatever that unknown is. Then we just plug it back into our formula. So they told us the perimeter is 32. 2 lengths plus 2 widths equals 32. So we're just going to simplify at this point and distribute first. Combine like terms. Subtract 8. Always running out of room. Divide by 4. Now be careful what they ask for. Because I defined it at the beginning, I know what x means. X is the width. That's what they asked for us to find. If they'd asked for the length, then I would have to go over here and know that I'd have to add 4 more to get my list. So always pay attention to what they're asking for. You don't want to miss easy points. So 6 feet is our answer. Alright, find the area and circumference of a circle whose diameter is 12 yards. So area is pi r squared, and circumference is 2 pi r or pi d. Either one of those will give you the same answer. So let's go to our area first. So we can use 3.14 for pi. That's what it tells us to do. And then we have to times it by our radius squared. Well, if they give you diameter, don't forget the radius is half your diameter. So if our diameter is 12, our radius is 6. So it's radius squared first though. So remember, order of operations, you want to do exponents before you multiply. So radius squared is 36. So 3.14 times 36 is 113.04. Don't forget your labels. Area is always your units squared. So yards squared. Circumference, you can use 2 pi r or pi d. Since they gave us the diameter, you might as well use the diameter one. So you're just going to do 3.14 times 12. Still works if you use the other formula, 2 times pi times r. Remember our r was 6, so if you notice 6 times 2 is 12, so when you multiply those together you get 37.68. Circumference is always whatever your unit is. We don't want to square it or cube it. Alright, number 8. A rectangular swimming pool has a width of 35 feet and an area of 2450 feet. What is the pool's length? Alright, so if we want to use the perimeter formula. Oh wait, we're doing area, sorry. Let me make sure we're not supposed to be using Alright, so we're just assuming it's just a pretty flat. We're not worried about the like a rectangular prison. So area equals length times width. So it told us this, the area, and it told us the width. So if you want to change that L to an X so that you know what you're doing, but you're still solving for that L. So if they're multiplying by 35, we will divide by 35. This cancels out, and then we get 70 feet. So remember, length is never cubed or squared. It's just a plain old unit, whatever it is. Alright, number 9. Given the diagram below, find the measure of each angle. Alright, so if you have to remember, the interior angles add up to 380 degrees. I'm sorry, 180 degrees. So interior angles, the sum of those are 180. So I just took whatever this mystery is, plus this mystery and this mystery, but we know all three of those add up to 180. So combine your like terms. So there's 9 x's. So we know that x equals 20. Now we're going to go back over. So the measure of angle A is 5 times whatever our x is. So 5 times 20 is 100. Angle B is just x, so x was 20. And angle C is 3 times whatever our angle was, so 120 and 60 degrees. And then those should add up to 180 if you did it correctly. Alright, number 10. Formula P equals 15 plus 15d over 11 describes the pressure of seawater, P in pounds per square foot, at a depth of d feet below the surface. At what depth is the pressure 30 pounds per square feet? Alright, so this is our P. So all I did was just take my equation and substitute my P with 30. Now I'm going to solve it. So the easiest thing to do is to get rid of this first. So I subtracted 15 to get rid of that. Now I'm going to times everything by 11 to get rid of that. And then divide by 15. And then of course you want to make sure that you label it correctly. So it is 11 feet deep. Number 11 is solving for a variable. So 3x plus 6y equals 12. We're trying to figure out what y would be. So we're going to put this on this side, which means there's minus and 3x from both sides. That gets rid of that. And then we're going to divide everything by 6. So 12 divided by 6 simplified. If we simplify that, so that's a good answer. Notice in the answer key they have it backwards, which is fine as long as your sign matches when it's flip-flopped. You could also have an answer like that, which really isn't simplified. Yeah, I think I would still take it. Alright, number 12, given the equation A equals P plus PRT, solve for R. So our goal is to work on that term last. So we're going to subtract P from both sides. Gets rid of that. And our goal is to get this R by itself. But right now it's being multiplied by P and T. So if we divide by P and T, it will get rid of those. and this answer or this answer are the same. All they did was put this A over PT and then the P over PT, but the P's would cancel out, so that's why you're left with 1. So either one of these answers are good. Okay, number 13, 4y over 7 minus 7/8 equals 3 over 56. Anytime you have lots of fractions, find a common number that all the denominators go into and multiply it by it. So when you do that, you're making everything 56 times bigger. But when we do that, it will eliminate your fractions. So it looks like that. So basically you're cross-canceling. So we're left with 32y minus 49 equals 3. Now if you didn't want to do that and you just want to deal with the fractions, that's fine. It does get a little messier, and there's more places that you can make mistakes with fractions because you have to remember all the fraction rules, but it'll still work. So divide both by 32, and then this can be reduced by 4, and 13/8 is your final answer. Oops, sorry. So unreduced answer, reduced answer. Now I'll be looking over your MyMathLab answers, because it'll probably mark some things wrong if you didn't reduce it, but then I go back in and give you some points for at least getting it so far. Alright, number 14. Use the given information to write an equation. Let x represent the number described, then solve the equation and find the number. Alright, so write these as you read them unless they are subtracting, and if they're subtracting then you flip-flop the order if they say the word from or than. So first thing I notice is they say from. So instead of doing 7 minus, we're going to put this first and then minus 7. So 7 is subtracted from, and then product means multiply, so they're going to do the product of 4 and a number, so we don't know that number. And then is equals, so there's our equation, and then we'll solve it. Divide by 4. Right, number 15, 3 is 60% of what number? So if you just don't remember this, as stated in other videos, I'm not a big fan of A equals PB. Too hard to remember what A, P, and B equal. But this is a percent formula, and all you need to remember is percent always goes over 100, and then you look for the word of, and if the number follows the word of, it goes on the bottom. It's always the whole. So percent is always over 100, and then 3 does not go at the bottom because it does not follow the word of. It is not a whole, it is actually the part. What follows the word of is the word what, which in math means x. And then to solve that, 3 times 100 divided by 60. So that's where 5 comes in. Alright, number 16. After a 30% reduction, you purchase a coat for $98. What was the price before the reduction? So always start with defining your X. This is price before reduction. So we know that the price of the coat was this, and then we took away this discount. Now it's not 30 cents, it's 30% of whatever it was. So don't forget that important X. Now if they're talking sales tax, we would add because tax is added, but the discounts are always subtracted. So we're going to combine our like terms. So this is 1x, take away 0.3x, and that's what that equals. If we divide by 0.70, you come up with $140. And you can check yourself. You can take 140, times it by 30%, see if it equals 98. So if it's a correct answer, it will work forward and backwards. All right, number 17, the sum of two consecutive odd numbers is $124. What are the two integers? So defining my x first. This is our first odd integer. So don't forget, if I had an odd number, let's just say it's number 1, my next odd number would be 3. So whatever this mystery number is that we don't know, in this case we do, but let's say we don't know it, to get to the next consecutive odd integer, consecutive just means in a row, we had to add 2 to it. If we had to go to one more, we'd add 4 to it, but in this case it's just asking for 2. So our second one would be defined as so. If they say odd or even, it doesn't matter because it always fit the situation. If I did 2 and I went to my next integer consecutive, it would be 4. So we're still only adding 2. So it doesn't matter if they say even or odd. You're still going to have the same setup. So we're going to take our first number and add it to our second unknown number, but we know that it's 124. Combine like terms. Subtract 2 from both sides. Divide by 2. So it's always good that if your number comes out odd, that's a good sign. So always make sure that matches. And then, so our x, first one is 61, add 2 more, we get 63. Number 18, solve the equation 4x plus 1 minus 5x equals 5 minus x plus 4 in parentheses. Alright, so we want to combine like terms and simplify the equation best we can before we start switching sides. So let's do this side first. So I look at this, those are both x's. 4 take away 5. This guy didn't get touched. This one has parentheses. Now this doesn't mean 5 times this because it's not touching the parentheses. It means this negative is getting distributed to the guys inside. Now you can put a little 1 here and distribute a -1. Means the same thing. Or you can just think of it as you're giving the negative to everybody in the parentheses. This side can still be simplified. I can put this guy and this guy together. Now, if you notice, we have the same exact thing, just kind of written different. But this is a negative x. This is a positive 1. When this happens, where you have the same exact thing on both sides, you have all answers that'll work for that. So that is why C is your answer of choice. If your x's cancel out and what's left isn't true, so for example, say this was a 2, our x's cancel out, but then it says 2 equals 1, then this is the answer. There's no solving it. That's just what that means. These cancel completely out and leave you 0 equals 0, so that A is not a good answer. It has to say x equals 0 or 0 equals x for A to be an answer. So when this happens, when the same exact thing's on both sides, C is our answer. Alright, sketch on a number line and write your solution in interval notation. X is greater than or equal to 4. Alright, so here's our 4. And as long as your x is on the left side, your symbol here always points the direction that you need to draw your arrow. So we know that it's going to go this direction because it's going to be greater than 4. So it's going to go to infinity. Because this is greater than or equal to, we have to use a bracket. If it was just greater than, we would use a parenthesis. So the notation for that is using your number line. Our smallest number that it can be is 4. And don't forget your bracket. The largest number it can be is parenthesis. I'm sorry, infinity. Don't forget the parenthesis for infinity. Infinity does not get brackets. Alright, number 20. Solve the inequality and sketch on a number line. Write your solution in interval notation. Alright, so actually let me do this on a piece of paper so we don't mess up our number line. Alright, so we have x's on both sides. I'm going to subtract on this side. So I'm solving it just like it's an equal sign. I'm just making sure I keep this. Minus 4. Now, when you divide by a negative, don't forget to flip your sign or your symbol. So dividing by a negative flips it. And a negative and a negative become a positive. So this says x is less than 9/5. So let's put 9/5 on here. Remember how I said if your x is on the left side, this always points the direction that your number line's going to go. So we're heading this direction. So it's less than this. Because there's no greater than, then we use a parenthesis. Now using your number line, the smallest number, because it always goes in order from smallest to biggest, it can be is negative infinity. So remember, negative infinity is on this side, positive infinity is on this side. The largest number it can be is 9/5, and it gets a parenthesis because it is not a greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, whatever. Alright, 21. 8x minus 11 less than or equal to 3x minus 13. So minus 3x, 5x minus 11, plus 11, 5x is negative 2, divided by 5. We're dividing by a positive, so we keep the signs the same direction. So x is greater than or equal to negative 2/5. So as long as your x is on the left-hand side, you're pointing the direction that it's going to go. That's a negative infinity side. It's greater than, less than, or equal to. So we get a bracket. And then to put it in notation, the smallest it can be is negative infinity. The largest it can be is negative 2/5 with our bracket. 22, a sofa regularly sells for $840. The sale price is $600. Find the percent decrease in sofa's price. So this is our percent equation. The thing you need to remember about part, though, it is a difference between beginning and end. And then the thing to remember about the whole is it's where it's starting from. So if I put this into the formula, well, first of all, we don't know the percent. That's what we're trying to find. But our part is the difference between the two. So 840 take away 600. And then where it starts from goes on the bottom. Then we're going to multiply and divide. So 24000 divided by 840. And we get 28.5%, sorry. And that would be none of the above. All right, 23. A skirt costs $24.99 after a 5% sales tax. Find the original cost of the skirt. So a lot of people I see do this problem. They always do $24.99 times 5% and they get a number. But this is already included the 5% tax. So this is our original cost. So we know our original cost plus the sales tax, but in this case our sales tax is this, equals $24.99. Add these together, divide by 1.05, and I get 2380. And again, you can check yourself by taking 2380, times it by 5%, and add it and see if you get 24.99. Alright, 24. What's the volume of a pipe that has a diameter of 10 meters and a height of 9 meters? So a pipe looks like such. So our formula is pi r square height. So that's a volume of a cylinder. So it tells us that 3.14 is our pi. We need to do radius squared. Well, they gave us diameter, so our radius is half of that. If we square it, we get 25. And times our height. I get 706.5, and it is meters, and volume is always cubed. So that would be D. And last but not least, find the measure of a supplement of a 32-degree angle. So remember, supplement is the angles add up to 180. So if we subtract those two, I get 148. So our answer is D. If you have any questions, have no fear to contact me.